Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Moss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope that you are having a wonderful Tuesday as we slide into Thursday. Brothers and sisters, today's topic, I really want to take a little time with. It's sensitive, and I have to be saying that I say that it's sensitive because, there's a thing about when people want justice, but it's denied to them. And then we have this scenario, this growing phenomenon in the United States that American justice has this Kevin from Home Alone realization that they have affected in negative ways and impacted in negative way people's lives. One of the big headlines this week, the big one, was the case of two men who were unjustly accused of assassinating Malcolm X. Why is this important? Because the guy who actually said I did it actually told investigators that the two guys that you had have nothing to do with it. Yet they spent an amazing amount of time in jail. One of them is dead. One of them is extremely in advanced age. So what does that exoneration mean, brothers and sisters? Because I'm worried that we're throwing that term around. The exoneration is empty. It's empty of something. It's devoid, brothers and sisters. The term that we use is that he was found innocent after 37 years, or he was found innocent after 27 years. After 27 years precludes the fact that that person was innocent before 27 years, innocent at the time of their conviction, innocent at the time of their incarceration, innocent at the time of the institutionalization of prison. And I have to say this, and many of you may agree, you may not agree. This is becoming pop culture. That the systems that we know are corrupt, that the systems that we know are inefficient, somehow deserve a pass because they right their wrongs or choose to right their wrongs. Some, 10, 15, 20, 30 years later. And the thing that has to be brought up, brothers and sisters, is the people who instituted those rules. The people who acted on these laws are no longer here to stand here and do penance on their decisions. The misconduct of prosecutors, the fabrication of evidence and testimony and witnessing. We have a whole culture, brothers and sisters, that literally scares me to death because you can go into the judicial system and be broken. You can go into the judicial system and not only be broken, but never be heard from again. When I say never be heard from again, you may be at the bottom of a prison, or you may not even see a prison. You might just see the bottom of a grave. We in America, and when I say we, I mean all of us, have to look at the ramifications of these things that we're seeing, brothers and sisters. A couple of shows back, I said, we have to have an innocence project that balances out all these things, that all of a sudden, all these cases, brothers and sisters, are being reviewed because there's misconduct. The prosecutors didn't share information. They didn't say, hey, listen, we talked to someone who said that the person we have was not the person. They were there. The idea that the evidence was so strong that it could tip over the apple cart for what the judicial system had already framed their minds to do. And the arrogance and the pride means that they're not willing to do it. Only after 20, 30 years are they willing to undo the damage, and say it's okay. And when they undo the damage, it's not from a heartfelt place. It is not. It's from a strategically located premise of how we are going to make these people feel like we did you a favor. And clearly, brothers and sisters, clearly, it happens more and more and more and more. I can sit up here and give you theories, conspiracy theories. I'm not going to do that because the evidence is very clear. The evidence is stark and clear. There are people who say they knew who killed Malcolm X, and yet you have people who are rotting in prison. This person lived a life. They went in jail, out of jail, but they lived a life. They didn't even if they were guilty of this crime, they didn't deal with the stigma of what it was to hurt someone who is so near and dear to our community. And that's just on the top side of it, okay? But we begin to see more and more, brothers and sisters, that we have to have a bigger presence as a community. We seem to have our own innocence project, our own counterbalance. If we have to have an innocence project, then there should be an incompetence project, that we should be able to look at these laws, look at these players and say, listen, clearly you did not abide by your oath. And you took it upon yourself to be officials for white supremacy or whatever it is, to uphold white women's chastity, whatever it is, their purity. And to do that, it wasn't enough to wrongly accuse these people, but to make them an example of, even if you're thinking about doing the right thing, this could happen to you. I'm the Shout Out Show. Brothers and sisters, I appreciate you. We're going to get on it. Be right back. SOS. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get started, I want to give some special shout outs. I want to give a shout out to my auntie, my heart, Miss Shirley Bethel. She's down in North Carolina, getting the best treatment that's available to Aunt Shirley. Our prayers go out to you. I also want to give a shout out to anyone else who's dealing with some health issues during this time. You know who you are. I'm going to give a shout out to my main man, Marlon Hill, who's on recovery from COVID. We have a lot of folks out there. I can't get everybody, but I'm going to tell you what you can do. You can go to permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. Again, that's permissiblelaughter@gmail.com. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll bring it up on the show. I am not ashamed to tell you that I pray for people who are not feeling well. I pray for people that are going through difficult times, and I would hope that you pray for me. All right. So before we get deep into this, brothers and sisters, I want you to know that this show is pre-recorded. I had a engagement later today, and with the time change, I couldn't move it around. I'm on the East Coast, so I had to follow through on this. So forgive me, but we'll be back live tomorrow. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that this is pre-recorded, but you can leave your comments. I'd love to see your comments, and I do come back and watch the shows and check out some of the comments. So before we get started, I want to give a shout out to, I call them the Shout Out family, the Shout Out soldiers. You know who you are. I want to give a shout out to Sister Reed. Hope you're doing well, Sister Reed, Derek, and Juan. God bless you. I want to give a shout out to my main man, Altaf Rashid, Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Our only ambassador, the Canadian ambassador to the Shout Out Show. Not a lot of shows can claim that, brothers and sisters. We have a Canadian ambassador to the show. I want to give out a shout out to you. I want to give a shout out to Johnny L. Thomas, my little brother, better known as JT. And I know that he is enjoying getting ready for Thanksgiving with his family. Shout out to Yolanda, Mama Maisie, Miss Mamie, and Eunice, Vivian, and the Thomas boys, and all the extended family. I want to give a shout out to everybody there. Also, I'm going to give a shout out to my main man, Elijah Salahuddin, Fight the Power, who's always on the show. Ahmed Shahid, also on the show. Man, Wazir Ali, also dips in on the show. Man, Oliver Muhammad, who also dips on the show. I want to give a shout out to my mom, better known as Mary Moss, but to me will always be Mama San. Shout out to Miss Maxine BK. And, of course, big shout out. We hope you're feeling better. Miss Eleanor Davis, one of our hearts on the Shout Out Show, longtime fan of the SOS. Want to make sure that everybody's doing well. And I want to give a shout out to our new sponsor. We don't have our ad up yet. We're working on it, but we want to give a shout out to CUC, Convenient Urgent Care, out of Houston, Texas, with 3 locations, Cypress, Pasadena, and Houston on Parker Road. So thank you for letting me get that out. So, brothers and sisters, the concept of an exoneration is largely like the aspect of redemption. In religious terms, when you commit a wrong, There's repentance. You must repent. In religion, you repent. But the other side of repenting is that you're blessed for redemption, which means that you are able to correct, in some regards, the people that you injured, you make them whole. I've said this before. Redemption is not, hey, I'm sorry. Redemption is you make them whole. Even in criminal cases where people take plea deals and plead guilty, there's a portion in the courtroom that's called allocution. And you have to allocute to the things that you did. So it's not like I plead guilty and I don't have to talk about why I'm guilty. I have to allocute to those things. There's crime, drugs, murder, prostitution, whatever it is, you have to allocute to those things. Therefore, it gives you a little bit of a library. It gives us a glimpse of what it was the prosecution or the judicial process allow for these things. But we know what you did. What's happened in this exoneration economy, brothers and sisters, is that we have people like Governor Ron DeSantis out of Florida who recently exonerated 4 people for what was called the Groveland 4. I think I'm getting that right. The Groveland 4. It was 4 young black men who were accused by a white woman. She said that she was a teenager with her husband. That's another thing. She was a teenager with her husband. Her car broke down. They were approached by 4 black youth, and by gunpoint, they were held, abducted, and she was raped. Now, here's the problem. This is 1949. And in 1949, there's no due process for the African American. There's no due process for the Latino or people of color. There's no due process whereby the sheriff can be the judge, jury, and the executioner. So 4 men, hear me now, not even 4 men, 4 teenagers were put before a jury, and their case was lied to, but a body of lies was presented to a jury, all-white jury. Sound familiar? And that all-white jury, brothers and sisters, was empowered to see that this was more than judicial process. This was your opportunity to buffer something. This was your opportunity to strengthen the foundation that was there. And we could either say it was white supremacy, but it's even more, brothers and sisters. It is control over people of color. It's an opportunity to create negative apparatuses to make sure that these people don't have any kind of mobility towards justice. 4 teenagers. Why is this case important? This case is important because it's one of the cases that, of course, Thurgood Marshall addressed, a brilliant lawyer, if you will. And he argued for the remaining 3. Why? Because the one they chased into the swamp, they found him, they killed him, they shot him 400 times. Is this justice? And even getting a retrial, one of the guys who was a veteran, they had 2 guys. The sheriff said they tried to escape. He killed the other one. Out of the remaining 3, he killed one, and another one, brothers and sisters, he was shot too, but he was a veteran and he hung on. However, prison is a hard thing. I don't understand people. I don't think people understand just how hard prison really is. When I say hard, I mean it's not your normal living. This is the worst of living. Even when I do shows at the prison, I can't wait to get out. The laugh is different in prison. And the reason it's different, brothers and sisters, I said, because this is the few times they get to laugh at what they want to laugh at. Not what they're told, not what somebody's oppressing them to do. It is a free show. But let me get back to this. That the states, the state governments, the state judicial systems, they offer exonerations. not apologies. They offer exonerations. An exoneration is framed, brothers and sisters, to let you know that you're lucky. That you're lucky. Most cases don't go all the way to juries. They don't. They get pled out. And the reason they get pled out, and this is not a punk move or anything like that, it's just that the prosecution holds all the chips. There are guys who have done time 3-4 years because like if it goes to a jury, now I have to incur the fact that the judge and the jury and the prosecutor are now offended that I would question their judgment, even though I know I'm innocent. I'm questioning their judgment. And now, of course, the penalty is going to be much worse. You are literally rolling the dice. And so for this remaining bit of time, as we talk about the assassination of Malcolm X, but in a much broader tone, okay, in a much broader tone, and we talk about the Groveland 4 down in Florida, which ironically preempted, of course, Emmett Till. It follows the same pattern, though. It follows the same pattern. And not only were the Groveland 4, of course, tracked down, hunted, it gave provocation and space and cause for people to just go after any black person. Ironically, Rosewood took place in Florida. Now, here's the thing I want to throw out. In a culture where the aspect of not being able to apologize or not apologizing, period, is now looked upon as a source of strength. Something that is politically savvy. And that political savviness, if you will, brothers and sisters, has led us to the point whereby people are literally getting away with murder. I won't necessarily reference the Rittenhouse rules. I did that yesterday, and I talked about stand your ground and things like that. This is far worse than that. These are rules. These are guarantees for law that says that even when you're wrong, you're right. I want to say latitude is given to prosecutors to, in many regards, brothers and sisters, in many regards, expand their case, exaggerate their case, withhold evidence, because they know if I take one brick out of this system of justice, the whole thing could fall. That has to be scary. That has to be scary, downright scary and intimidating for anybody going to a courtroom, let alone if it was 1946. Let alone people talk about Emmett Till, but they never talk about the trial. The fact that his uncle pointed out the killers in the room. They pointed out the killers in the room, in the courtroom. There, right there, Mo's out. That's them right there. And an all-white jury took less than an hour to find all of these men not guilty. In fact, they went out for ice cream. I heard that if they didn't order for ice cream, it would have been shorter. So what's the point now, brothers and sisters? We have a culture whereby doubling down now means that I don't have to apologize right now. You see the thing of the Groveland 4, the thing of the exoneration of the two brothers who accused of killing Malcolm X and things like that, and these innocent projects has largely to do with loss of quality of life, loss of quality of opportunity. You see, by those men being in prison, it means that they couldn't contribute to their community. They couldn't contribute to their community. Four men out of the Groveland, all of them are dead. Their children come and take these exonerations from the governor, but it was never given to them when they were living. You know, the scope of this thing, if you will. It's hard to frame for a lot of us until it happens to us. Until somehow, some way, it directly affects what you're doing and what you believe. Oftentimes, don't get me wrong, I know when people commit crimes. Okay? We know when people commit crimes. But oftentimes there are people who don't commit crimes. There are people who have crimes committed against them. You know, you have to be foolish to think that if they couldn't have arrested Malcolm X on something after he was leading the Nation of Islam, they wouldn't have done it. Or Elijah Muhammad, or Minister Louis Farrakhan, or Martin Luther King, or Medgar Evers. If they couldn't find something legally on these guys, if they could, I'm sorry, they would have done something legally to make sure that you will be in prison. And from that generation, what you have, brothers and sisters, even from Garvey, is a very, very acute understanding of how American law does not work for people who are not white or don't serve white interests. Maybe that's even better. I tell folks all the time, you know, what's an apology if you're not going to tell me why you're sorry? I remember I got a whooping one time. I got a spanking one time. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not advocating for capital punishment or anything like that. But the one thing I could say, when I got that whooping, at no point in time during the spanking did I not know what I was getting whooped for. I understood risk and reward. I understood reward and punishment. But at no point in time did I sit here going, I don't know what that was all about. And what's interesting is that those who are not in the system, those who not benefit from the legal system of the United States, which is a lot of us, we're constantly called to, in some regards, uphold this model that we know does not work for us. The only reason American law is still in practice is because American law, the judicial system, is still able to squash the little people, to victimize the oppressed, to continue to oppress them. It's almost like blood sport. And you create generations of people who are either going to be afraid of the law or they're going to be absolutely lawless. That's the two polar opposites. And in the middle, they're going to be the people who question the law, but it's going to be few and far between. You see what I'm saying? And it's not even to be funny or anything like that. I'm not even trying to be funny. But the irony is so thick here. If I told you some of the stuff that people go to jail for, you would laugh. But it would be a different laugh. It'd be a laugh to keep from crying. We are looking at things. We are watching prosecutors, people who are sworn to uphold the law. They are officers of the court, brothers and sisters, but at the same time, they will go to any means to get their client off. Even if it means, hear me now, even if it means that I don't even respect the dignity of the people I'm supposed to serve. A lot of folks don't get that. I'm not going to deal with the dignity of the people that I'm supposed to serve. And I tell folks that when we talk about our children these days, what are you going to give them for an example that jurisprudence is actually going to work? We've turned out generations and generations of folks who have failed, for lack of a better word, who have failed to give a proper interpretation of how the law necessarily affects them. And it can't be in the criminal space all the time. It needs to be in the commercial space. It needs to be in the constitutional space. We're not branding ourselves people who actually are investors, inheritors, and investigators of the law. I'm going to touch this one and then I'm going to go. But we got to talk about this whole idea of doubling down. Doubling down is probably one of the Achilles heels of social justice here in the United States. Because you now have a process or a procedural understanding of how I don't have to even acknowledge. Hear me now. I don't have to acknowledge the people that I hurt. that I am able to go out and wreak havoc, and then I can come back and do what I want to do, and it's going to be all right. That I can do it, and I can run back to a group of people, the herd, if you will. I can run back to the herd, and the herd will protect me, because I've emphasized to the herd that what I've done over here, I've done for you. In Charlotte, Virginia, right now as we speak, they just had a trial, right? They just had a trial, and it came to a partial verdict against the people who came in, the white supremacists, the neo-Nazis. They just got sued. They found liable for $25 million in damages. I don't care. What I care about is the fact that, brothers and sisters, we're having a trial whereby all the evidence points to the fact that you came here with bad intent. What happened in Charlottesville was supposed to happen, the same way as what happened January 6th was supposed to happen. And we see a judicial system backpedal, brothers and sisters, throwing out roadblocks like critical race theory, knowing 90% to 95% of the people who talk about critical race theory don't know what it's about. That is not being taught in school. That is not about telling white kids that you're bad or you're a racist. It was never about that. It was about talking about the law was racist. And if you abide by the law and you're good with the law, then that says something about you. How can we talk about critical race theory when here in 2022, we're exonerating dead black men from white men using the sword of justice not to give them justice, but to behead them in the most cruelest of ways. And that sword is not, the gavel is a sword, brothers and sisters. It's not a gavel, it's a sword, and it cuts both ways. And literally, I've lived to the point where I see that this monster of American justice or American injustice has come back to bite his own. So now you have a Rittenhouse situation where he's killing other white men. I wonder if Mr. Rittenhouse was found guilty and he did 37 years. Would somebody exonerate him? We made a mistake. We looked at the evidence. And when we look at him being exonerated the same way we would look at, oh my gosh, 6 black men recently being exonerated after the fact. Families are destroyed, opportunities are gone, reputations are ruined. And here comes American justice down the road. I'm here. I made a mistake. That's the Home Alone face. I made a mistake. So, brothers and sisters, I'm going to employ all of us, and I'm going to do it myself, that, yeah, we look at some of the cases that are out there. We look at some of the people who have been pioneers for justice and probably suffered the most. But in their hearts, in their expression, they clearly delineated that this is wrong, that this is not justice. And while they may not have been able to shout it from the mountaintops, maybe it was constitutional cases like a Plessy versus Ferguson or something like that, what it gave rise to, brothers and sisters, that people said, your law isn't valid over the fact that I'm a human being and I can tell you that there are human being or human violations afoot. All right, brothers and sisters, that's all I got for us today. So what I would like to do, if you guys don't mind, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give a shout out to our folks. Bear with me here. Bear with me. We'll make sure we give a shout out to BeFinancialIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinancialIndependent.com. Financial services is so crucial these days. And I tell people this because in 2022, I anticipate we are going to have some issues with inflation. And it's going to be so much more about not what your dollar does for you, but how much your dollar can do for you, and about protecting wealth. So I tell people, go to BeFinancialIndependent.com. Again, that's www.BeFinancialIndependent.com. If you don't want to use the website, you can call 1-800 I'm sorry, 1-866 496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. I apologize for that. All right, so make sure you're checking that out. And I would also encourage everybody to check out Bayan Online Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Online Graduate School. If you're thinking about getting a quality Islamic graduate education at the master's level, the doctorate level, you want to check them out. Again, that's bayanonline.org. They have programs for Islamic studies, Islamic leadership, Islamic education. I am a true and living witness. And I tell folks, this is really, really important. You know, when we get older in life, it's tough to get these degrees, okay? I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult to get these degrees, but this is a program that was fashioned for people who are still working with families. They have a great scholarship program, the Muhammad Ali Legacy Scholarship, of which I was a recipient to help defray the cost. In fact, they didn't defray the cost. It was a full ride, brothers and sisters. But my point is, the setup and the makeup of the staff, the administrators, the teachers really lent to us. Even though we were working and doing long hours and the intensive, it really brought us back to the fact that we could learn, and that learning could be beneficial. Okay, so that's that. Again, shout out to Convenience Urgent Care. I didn't get a chance to give them a shout out in the state of Texas, Houston, Texas, if you will. 3 locations: Cypress, Pasadena, and Houston, Texas on Parker Road. Listen, you guys have been great. I gotta go. Inshallah. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, team, we've come to the end of yet another show. And I have to say, I had a good time, and I hope that you had a good time as well. Listen, at this part of the show, we have no more show. I could literally sing a song saying we have no more show. However, to spare all of us that embarrassment and chaos, I'm just going to say, please join us tomorrow here on the Shout Out Show, Monday through Thursdays, and every first Saturday, we do our Saturday Spotlight. Here we are again, 5 to 5:30 on the Central Time. And of course, we're going to do our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock p.m. And of course, that would be 6 o'clock on the West Coast. So, time for you to go, because it's time for me to go. I think I will do that song. Thank you for coming to the show. Thank you for coming to the show. That's all the lyrics I wrote. But you get the idea. See you tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.